There are moments when the world grows quiet in an unexpected way, when noise fades and a different kind of attention takes over, the kind that feels personal even when it comes from someone far away. This is the space where people lean in, not because they are told to, but because something inside them feels seen. When people speak about Elon Musk's mother sharing a message, what draws them is not fame or headlines, but the idea of a mother's voice cutting through ambition, pressure, and constant motion to say something human. Something meant to land softly, yet firmly, in the heart of whoever is listening. She has been known to stand at the edge of immense achievement, watching a son build companies, challenge industries, and reshape conversations about the future. But her most personal message is not about rockets, technology, or success. It is about you. Not you as a statistic, a follower, or a number, but you as a person who wakes up with doubts, who carries hopes quietly, who sometimes feels behind in life even while doing their best. The power of her words, as people imagine them, comes from the contrast. A woman who has seen extraordinary heights chooses to speak about ordinary courage. What makes such a message feel intimate is that it doesn't rush. It doesn't shout. It doesn't promise shortcuts. It speaks slowly, as if sitting across from you, reminding you that no meaningful life is built without seasons of uncertainty. She has lived through times when the future looked unclear, when resilience was not a motivational quote but a daily requirement. In that experience lies the reason her voice resonates. It is the voice of someone who understands that strength is often quiet, practiced in small decisions made when no one is watching. People imagine her saying that you do not need permission to believe in yourself. That the world will always find reasons to doubt you, label you, or reduce you to a single moment or mistake. Yet she has watched a child grow while being misunderstood, criticized, and underestimated. She has learned that consistency matters more than applause, and that belief sustained over time becomes a force stronger than talent alone. When this message reaches you, it feels less like advice and more like reassurance. A reminder that your pace is allowed to be your own. There is something deeply grounding in the idea of a mother speaking beyond her family, extending care outward. It suggests that encouragement is not a limited resource. Her most personal message feels like it is rooted in the belief that people need to hear they are not late, broken, or invisible. That even when life feels fragmented, there is still coherence forming beneath the surface. She would not frame this as destiny or luck, but as preparation happening in ways you may not recognize yet. The message carries a quiet insistence that comparison is one of the most exhausting habits we adopt. Watching others succeed can make your own progress feel small, even when it is real. She has seen firsthand how public success hides private struggle, how achievements that look effortless from the outside often come from years of failure, stress, and persistence. In speaking to you, the message seems to gently dismantle the illusion that everyone else has it figured out. It reminds you that no one reaches meaningful outcomes without paying a price that is rarely advertised, there is also compassion in acknowledging exhaustion. Not the dramatic kind, but the steady weariness that comes from trying to be responsible, hopeful, and strong all at once. Her words seem to validate that feeling without turning it into weakness. Rest, in this message, is not quitting. It is maintenance. It is the act of respecting your limits so that your vision can survive long enough to become real. She has learned that burning out helps no one, and that sustainability is its own form of intelligence. The most personal part of the message is not what it says about success, but what it says about worth. That your value is not negotiated by achievements, titles, or external recognition. She would remind you that love does not arrive after success, it exists before it. That belief in yourself should not be postponed until conditions improve. Waiting to feel worthy is a trap that delays life itself. This message reaches people because it speaks to something many forget. You are allowed to take up space even while you are still becoming. There is an honesty in admitting that fear never fully disappears. Even at high levels of accomplishment, uncertainty remains. She has witnessed how courage is not the absence of fear but the decision to move forward while carrying it. When this idea lands, it feels freeing. You stop waiting for confidence to magically appear and start acting with the confidence that comes from movement. Her message reframes fear as a companion rather than an enemy, something to be acknowledged but not obeyed. People sense that this message would also speak about patience, not as passive waiting, but as active trust. Trust that effort compounds. Trust that lessons learned slowly last longer. Trust that your story does not need to match anyone else's timeline to be meaningful. She has lived long enough to see how quickly the world changes, and how often yesterday's impossibility becomes today's normal. That perspective gives weight to her reassurance that your current circumstances are not permanent, even if they feel heavy right now. There is a tenderness in the imagined way she would address setbacks. Not as signs to stop, but as feedback. As redirections that refine clarity. She has seen how failure can either shrink a person or sharpen them, depending on how it is interpreted. Her message would lean toward growth, urging you not to internalize every obstacle as a personal flaw. Instead, it encourages curiosity. What is this moment teaching you? What strength is it quietly building? What draws people most deeply is the sense that this message does not demand admiration. It does not ask you to look up to her or her family. It asks you to look inward, to recognize the resilience you already practice without applause. The message feels personal because it mirrors back what you may have forgotten about yourself. That you have survived days you once thought you wouldn't, that you have adapted more than you give yourself credit for, that your presence matters even when progress feels invisible. In a world obsessed with outcomes, her words linger on character. On kindness maintained under pressure. On integrity when shortcuts tempt. On humility that keeps learning alive. She has seen how easily success can distort priorities, and how grounding values act as anchors. Her message to you would not glorify struggle, but it would honor the quiet discipline of showing up honestly, again and again. There is also an invitation embedded in this message. Not to follow a path, but to trust your intuition more deeply. To listen to the internal signals that tell you when something aligns or doesn't. She has watched how listening inward can guide decisions better than noise from the outside. In speaking to you, the message feels like permission to choose what feels meaningful rather than what merely looks impressive. Perhaps the most personal element is the reminder that life is not a performance. That you do not need to constantly prove your worth to be allowed peace. She would likely emphasize that fulfillment is built through relationships, purpose, and self-respect, not relentless validation. This part of the message lands softly but stays long, especially for those who feel trapped in cycles of approval seeking. As the imagined words settle, there is a sense of steadiness left behind. Not excitement that fades quickly, but calm motivation. The kind that helps you breathe a little deeper and stand a little straighter. It doesn't tell you that everything will be easy. It tells you that you are capable. That you are allowed to take the next step even without complete certainty. That being human is not a flaw to fix, but a reality to honor. This is why people describe it as her most personal message yet. Not because it reveals secrets, but because it strips away distance. It speaks across generations, cultures, and circumstances. It doesn't depend on who you admire or what you believe about success. It meets you where you are and reminds you that progress begins there, not somewhere else. When the message ends, it doesn't feel finished. It echoes. It stays with you during ordinary moments, when you hesitate, when you compare, when you doubt. And in those moments, the quiet reassurance returns. You are not alone in your uncertainty, and you are not wrong for still becoming. That is the heart of why such a message feels like it was meant for you, personally, even in a vast and crowded world. The message continues not by adding pressure, but by releasing it. There is a sense that she would want you to loosen your grip on the idea that life must unfold in a straight line. She has lived long enough to see how detours become destinations, how plans dissolve only to make space for something more fitting. In this part of the message, the tone feels almost like a gentle laugh at the seriousness with which we sometimes judge our own progress. She would want you to know that flexibility is not weakness, and changing direction is not failure. It is intelligence responding to reality. There is also an unspoken understanding of loneliness woven into her words. Not the obvious kind, but the subtle isolation that comes from feeling misunderstood, from carrying dreams that others don't quite see. She knows what it's like to stand beside ambition that looks strange to the world at first, to believe before proof arrives. Her message to you would validate that solitude, not as punishment, but as part of the process. Some paths feel lonely because they are uncommon, and that does not mean you are lost. She would speak about responsibility, not as a burden, but as evidence of trust. If life has placed weight on your shoulders, it is not random. It suggests capability, even if you don't always feel it. This message reframes responsibility as a sign that you are stronger than you think, that you have already been entrusted with more than you realize. Instead of resenting the weight, she encourages you to recognize the strength that has been growing underneath it. The message deepens when it touches on mistakes. Not in a cautionary way, but with acceptance. Everyone makes decisions they would revise if given the chance. What matters is not perfection, but honesty. She would remind you that growth is rarely clean, and that learning often looks messy from the inside. Regret does not have to become identity. It can become wisdom, if you let it. There is something profoundly calming in the way this message handles time. She does not rush you. She does not warn you about running out. Instead, she speaks as someone who understands that timing is layered. That what feels delayed may simply be ripening. She would encourage you to stop measuring your life by deadlines borrowed from others and start listening to your own rhythm. Progress does not disappear just because it is quiet. She would also touch on self-respect, especially in moments when the world tests it. When you are asked to settle, to shrink, or to accept less than you know you deserve. Her message would not tell you to fight loudly, but to stand firmly. To recognize when compromise becomes self-betrayal. She has seen how dignity preserved over time becomes a foundation no setback can shake, as the message unfolds. There is warmth in the way she speaks about perseverance. Not the dramatic kind celebrated in headlines, but the everyday choice to keep going. To wake up, try again, and refuse to let one difficult chapter define the entire story. She would remind you that resilience is built quietly, through repetition, not grand gestures. There is reassurance for those who feel unseen. She knows that recognition often comes late, if at all. That doing meaningful work does not guarantee applause. Her message would gently shift your focus away from external validation and back toward internal alignment. Are you living in a way that feels true? That question, she suggests, matters more than who notices. She would speak kindly about hope, not as blind optimism, but as disciplined belief. Hope that survives disappointment. Hope that adjusts without disappearing. She understands that hope is not naive, it is courageous. Holding on to it when circumstances challenge it is one of the bravest acts a person can perform. The message also acknowledges that not every dream needs to be loud to be legitimate. Some aspirations are private, tender, and deeply personal. She would encourage you to protect those dreams, to nurture them away from excessive scrutiny until they are strong enough to stand on their own. Not everything needs to be shared to be real, as this part of the message settles. It leaves you feeling steadier rather than stirred up. There is no rush to act immediately, no demand to transform overnight. Just a quiet confidence placed back into your hands. A reminder that you are allowed to trust yourself, even when the path ahead is still forming, and as the words fade, what remains is not instruction, but companionship. The feeling that someone who has seen both struggle and success is standing beside you, not above you, saying without urgency and without doubt, "Keep going, gently, honestly, and in your own way." There is a sense of coming home to yourself. Not in a dramatic way, but in the calm realization that you have been carrying what you needed all along. She would not end with a command or a prediction, but with reassurance that feels settled, almost like a hand resting lightly on your shoulder. The kind of presence that doesn't need many words to be understood. She would remind you that life is not meant to be endured constantly. There are moments meant to be noticed, even in ordinary days. Small victories, quiet joys, brief pauses of peace. Her message would encourage you to stop postponing gratitude until everything is perfect. Appreciation, she would say, is not a reward for success. It is a tool for survival and clarity. There is an emphasis on self-trust here, stronger than before. Not the loud confidence that demands attention, but the steady inner knowing that guides decisions when no one else can advise you. She has seen how easily people abandon their instincts to fit expectations, and how costly that can be over time. Her final words would gently urge you to listen inward again, to remember that your intuition has been shaped by every experience you've lived through. She would also speak about kindness, especially the kind you offer yourself. The world is often unforgiving enough without you adding to that weight. Mistakes do not require punishment to be corrected. They require understanding. Growth fueled by compassion lasts longer than growth driven by shame. This part of the message feels especially personal because it addresses the way you speak to yourself when no one else is around. There is a quiet acknowledgement that not everyone will understand your journey, and that is okay. Approval is not a prerequisite for meaning. She would reassure you that living honestly may narrow your audience, but it will deepen your peace. You are not here to be universally accepted, you are here to be authentic. As the message reaches its closing, there is a sense of trust being placed in you. Not just encouragement, but confidence. Confidence that you will find your way. Not because the path is clear, but because you are capable of navigating uncertainty. She would want you to know that strength is not something you suddenly acquire, it is something you uncover by continuing. Her final reassurance would be simple and grounding. That you matter, even on days that feel unremarkable. That your effort counts, even when outcomes are delayed. That your presence has value, even when progress feels slow. These are not grand promises, but truths meant to steady you when doubt tries to take over, and as the message ends, it does not close a door. It leaves one open. An open space for you to step forward without pressure, without fear of being behind. Just with the understanding that you are allowed to move at your own pace. Guided by honesty, patience, and self-respect, the lasting feeling is not urgency, but calm determination. Not inspiration that fades, but reassurance that settles. A sense that someone who has witnessed both struggle and success is quietly reminding you of something essential. You are already enough to begin, and strong enough to continue. As the very last thoughts settle in, there is a softness to how the message lingers, as if it is careful not to disturb the strength it has just reminded you of. She would not want you to walk away feeling burdened with expectation. Instead, she would want you to feel lighter, clearer, and more at peace with where you are standing right now. The message does not pull you toward a distant future, it gently roots you in the present moment, where real change actually begins. She would leave you with the understanding that life does not require you to be extraordinary every day. Showing up sincerely is enough. Loving honestly is enough. Trying again, even when motivation feels thin, is enough. There is deep power in consistency that is quiet, almost invisible, yet unbreakable over time. She has seen how small, faithful efforts can build outcomes that surprise even those who believe the most. There is also a subtle reminder that you are allowed to protect your peace. Not every argument deserves your energy. Not every opinion deserves a response. Not every door needs to stay open. Maturity, she would suggest, often looks like discernment. Choosing what, and who, you give access to your inner world is not selfish, it is wise. She would speak briefly about love, not just romantic love, but the broader kind that shapes how you live. Love for your work, love for your values, love for the people who stand by you when nothing is impressive yet. She would remind you that love expressed through patience and respect has a way of sustaining you when excitement fades. It is this kind of love that builds lives, not moments. The message would also honor your past without trapping you in it. Every chapter, even the painful ones, contributed something to who you are now. You do not need to relive them to justify your growth. You are allowed to move forward without carrying guilt for outgrowing old versions of yourself. Growth is not betrayal, it is continuation. As the final reassurance settles, there is no dramatic farewell. Just a calm confidence placed quietly in your care. A sense that you are trusted with your own life. Trusted to make choices, to learn, to recover, to evolve. She would want you to feel that trust deeply, because being trusted changes how you stand in the world. When everything ends, what remains is a steady inner voice, gentler than doubt, stronger than fear. A reminder that you are not waiting for permission anymore. You are already on your way, even if the steps feel small, even if the destination is still forming, and that is where the message truly finishes, not with words, but with space. Space for you to breathe. Space for you to believe. Space for you to continue forward, carrying the quiet certainty that you are capable, worthy, and never as alone as you once thought.